our guests today, Guy and Kate
Ianello. Yeah.
And you're from the beautiful city of Ocoee.
Yes, we are.
And growing. Winter Garden, Ocoee, all that area.
It's getting nicer all the time.
Yeah, so we're so glad to have you here today with us, Guy and Kate. We know that you have a very powerful, very strong, very unusual testimony, so we want to really explore that to give our viewers a chance to get to know you better.
Wonderful.
Tell us a little bit about, I guess we should start with how you came to know the Lord. Maybe we can start with you, Kate.
Well, for me it was a process. My husband and I had been married 8 years and definitely struggling, definitely dysfunctional. A lot of drugs. Loved each other very much, but didn't really know how to handle marriage or handle life for that matter. And finally I had had enough of drugs and told my husband he needed help. And I was trying to change him. Obviously that doesn't work, so I moved out and went on my way to be a traveling nurse, and kind of through the pain of divorce, slowly discovered the Lord, crying out to God, who are you? Looking for a God that can really do something. I figured if God was God, he had power. And that's how I found the Lord, through pain. He was there for me. My husband, on the other hand, was changed instantly. And
how did that happen, Guy? I like to hear those instant.
It's called supernatural. Something that, many people are out there going, man, where are you, God? What's going on? I was in the drug world for over 20 years, and like Kate said, that we were married 8 years, and it's a tough life in the area where there's wealth one day and then famine the next day and then so forth, and the drugs begin to take you over, and then there's always paranoia, wondering you're going to get busted, and always out trying to outwit the police and this and that and whatever. But eventually, after Kate left, I really went bonkers. I owned an antique limousine service. I owned businesses. I ended up taking all the assets and all the money out of them and just living off of that. And the drugs just really overtook me to where I got to the point of suicide. And that didn't even work. And I believed in a God, and I began to cry out to God. And one day, a guy I used to ride Harleys with came into my life, and he'd gotten saved, and he says, man, you need to ask Jesus. Well, everybody goes from drugs to Jesus. That was my thought at that time, And I'm like, what can Jesus do for me? And I was brought up in church, but I never experienced God's presence or anything. So I went to a service with him, and I remember the preacher holding a Bible, and I'm thinking, man, is that Bible real? And he said, you just need to ask Jesus in your heart. So I went home that day, and I grabbed this Bible. Somebody gave me a Bible. And I had an 80-pound Doberman dog. And so me and the dog in the Bible went down to the pool, and I figured, go down and catch a tan while I'm here. There's only a few days left because my house was in foreclosure. I had gotten arrested again. I had a mandatory minimum sentence. I was supposed to go back to prison. At the age of 20, I was already sentenced to life once for the largest drug bust in Western New York. So, my life was a mess. So I looked up to God, and I looked up into the sky. I said, God, I know you're out there somewhere. I said, but, I've never had any experience. I don't know what's what. Today I was told to ask Jesus to come in my heart. So I asked for your forgiveness of everything I've done.
Wow.
Bad father, bad husband. I'm sorry for everything I've done. And I accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Well, instantly something started to happen in me. In fact, I thought it was going to rain. I'm thinking, why is it getting cloudy out here? And I was going to go in, and I was like, no, let's just stay here. And so I stayed out there, and I began to weep and cry like I never cried before in my life. I mean, I wailed. And I felt like a pain in me that was just a remorse so greatly that I was so, it was like, and I realized how the wicked things I did. And the next thing I know, that left, and then this love started filling me. And I realized as this love started filling me that it was everything I was looking for. It was like in a bottle, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and the power of money and the power of fame. And all of a sudden I began to realize that this love, it's got to be God that I was looking for. And something was happening, and I began to get so filled, and all of a sudden this cloud came around me, and I was blinded. I could not see. I didn't know what was going on except for I was in this cloud, and I knew that it was God. And it began to fill me and fill me and fill me. I thought I was going to explode, and I realized it was His love. And then I said, And it was all of a sudden, it was like a soda bottle popped, and my hands went up in the air, and this funny language started flying out of my mouth. That's what they call tongues. And I didn't know about all of this stuff because I had never really read the Bible and known anything. And the next thing I know, the Lord was taking snapshots of my life, saying, I forgive you, from the time I was young. I was brought to the other side, and I said, if this is death, I want it. Wow. When I said that, the cloud lifted. I was back where I was, like, you know, I sat up, and the presence of God was in front of him, and the first words out of his mouth was, my word is true. And he said, pick the Bible, and I began to pick it up. Of course, he knows where you're going to read. And my dog began to bark viciously, and I looked, and she was barking, and there was this long black snake, and this snake was trying to bite my dog. I mean, but this thing was hissing tremendously, and I was concerned about my dog, and I looked to the Lord and like, what do I do? And the next thing I know, I stood up, and my hand went like this towards this snake, but it actually was a serpent, and I said, from the love of God, I curse you, Satan. And this thing curled up and moved away, and I'm thinking, I would never say anything like this. I mean, where does that come from? And I looked to the Lord like, man, this stuff only happens in Star Trek, you know? And the Lord said to me, that came out of you. And he began to reveal to me about Satan being the ruler of the world, about his people are destroyed by lack of knowledge, and all of these other things. And I was totally healed because I was sick. I was down to 120 pounds.
My goodness.
I mean, I was totally healed, delivered, changed, filled with the Spirit of God. And he introduced me to the Holy Spirit, and it was like the natural realm opened up, and he left, and it was shut. Well,
Incredible. Incredible.
Instant.
Now, we have some pictures of you back during this time. We're going to show here, I think, on the screen. And again, you were in jail when you're in your 20s. Is that correct?
Yes,
in
I
fact,
was
here is
20 years
one of your
old.
booking pictures.
That was the second time I gotten busted. Yeah. I
And
was
you
out on
can
bail.
almost see the serpent in there, can't
Yeah.
you?
Yes,
You know,
you can.
you really
You
can.
can.
Yes, you can.
No doubt.
I want to know, Guy, what were some of the first drugs that you used? Because we have a lot of teenagers out there, grandmothers watching, mothers watching, maybe even some youth watching, that feel like, in particular the youth, you hear this from time to time, oh, it's just marijuana, or it's just pot, or it's really not going to hurt me. All the kids are doing it.
Right.
Did you start with something that benign, or did you?
Yes, in fact, I
Seemingly
started
benign.
with cigarettes.
Cigarettes.
Yes.
Okay.
Cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, so forth. And you know, the enemy is so deceptive. You know,
Yeah.
people think that, well, I'm not an addict, I just do it on weekends.
Or it's legal.
Yeah, or it's legal and whatever. And you know, and that's how it starts. Even, you know, some people go right to it from being injured from, and the next thing you know, they're on pain medication, and it goes from there. And but it just starts in the simplicity of way, like the innocent type of thing.
That's a deception
You
of
know,
Satan, to make us
very
believe that
much.
it's
It's an
not
open
going
door.
to. Yes, it is. Now, as soon as you had this enormous transformation, what was your next step? And maybe did you call Kate? Did Kate come back into your life? How did that happen?
Yeah, first of all, I was out on bail from that picture you saw. And I was facing a mandatory minimum 4-year sentence. I was in one of the limo's bodyguard, and I had guns and dope in the car. So, and I thank God that I did get arrested because we were actually going to go do some damage to somebody.
Wow. That
And
could have been life in prison.
That would have been life
Yeah.
in prison. And after this, you know, I mean, Kate and I, even though we were divorced, we were married 8 years, divorced 3 years now, we still loved each other, but we knew that, you know, my lifestyle, and so we just couldn't go on this way. And after my encounter, well, I got on a plane and went to New Mexico because actually we wanted to seal our marriage off, our divorce off completely. And I called her one day and said, this is before my encounter, and I said, you know, I'm getting ready to go back to prison. So I thought maybe we'd spend a little time together before I left. And so she sent me tickets to go to New Mexico, and she was a traveling nurse in New Mexico.
Going away present.
You know, so I flew to New Mexico after my encounter, and I got off the plane, and I said to Kate, I said, you know, there's a couple things I got to tell you. And she was like, what is this? And she looked at me strange, and she poked me and said, man, you're an alien. What happened to you?
Really?
It was
Physically, his appearance had changed to
It
you?
was very dramatic. You know, his body was the same. His social security number was the same, but he was not the same.
Wow.